And we are back, and we are continuing our conversation about child and domestic abuse in the home. We are still with Fermin of Olivera, and we are now joined by Jenny Lovell, who is a mental health advocate and a therapist. Good morning, Jenny, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning.
You know, continuing this conversation, perhaps we can start by, just getting some of your initial feedback on, the recent tragic events that I'm sure that has been at the forefront of everybody's mind. You come across these types of things in your field of work. So when you, heard the news, as everybody else, what were your initial thoughts?
I heard it last night when I looked at the news, and what I saw was rage. When you can beat a child that severely and then use your penis as a weapon, because that's what it was a weapon. And you have men in domestic violence, what they'll do, they'll rape their wives, because it's about the shame, it's about the punishment, the subjugation, the control, the power, And that's what they do. They will use their body organ to punish that woman. So batters a child and then sexually abuses that child. Yeah. And it's rage. That's it. A pedophile, let me tell you, a pedophile literally will talk about a child like a love object, like an adult. And they'll be very kind and sweet and because they're grooming that child. This wasn't that. This was rage. And people need to understand that. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important. See, as parents, men and women, we have to be aware about what's going on in our home and we have to protect our children. I heard Fermin saying that it is so critical that we protect these children because they're vulnerable. Yeah. Children also need to feel that emotional support from you. A child needs to know that I can come and tell you anything, and you're not going to beat me, you're not going to call me names, you're not going to curse me, you're not going to choose your man over me, that I have your emotional support. And a lot of times these children don't have that because the woman preferred to give that child to human services rather than let her man go. And I'm saying it out loud because we see this. Am I lying?
No, you're
we
right.
see this. And I'm always floored when a woman will select a man over her own child. But that baby, and when I say baby, I'm talking up to 13 years old, because pedophiles will go after children. They like prepubescent children, but they will go with children up to 13 years old, right? That child has to feel secure enough to come and tell you because they draw them in by telling them things or doing them things and then call it our little secret. This is how mommy wants you to love me, and tell the child all kinds of things. And so if you do not have that relationship with your child, a child will not feel safe to come and talk to you. And this is what we have to impress upon parents.
There's so many layers to this one issue, and I don't want to just focus it like this is an isolated case. I guess that's what I am trying. Right. Because some of the other issues we know are prevalent. Child abuse, we know exists. Yeah. Physical, neglect. Sexual neglect, we know exists. Domestic abuse, which is a very critical part of the conversation of what we've seen. I mean, clearly when you have both mothers, mother of the perpetrator and mother of the mother talking about there were signs, we have struggled for so long to be able to kind of get the message out of the implications of domestic violence, and this shows I think one of the ones we've been saying for a long time, it's not just your life at risk, it's the children as well. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about how this, because it still exists. There's a woman at home who probably is a victim of domestic violence who is scared now of thinking what could happen to their children.
Mm-hmm. There are places you can get help. Yeah. But see, a lot of women are so afraid because unfortunately in our country, when we offer like shelter, it's not for a long period. So if I'm not working, I go into the shelter for a while, but then what do? I don't have a job, I don't have any training. Like, what do I do? I still have these children I have to feed, I still have to feed myself. What do I do? So they go back into that situation even though they don't want to, because the support is not long enough and strong enough to help her and those children. Yeah. But I will say this, it is critical that you are constantly aware of your vulnerable child who is in that situation with you. You have to be, and if you
is
have
this common that in a domestic violence situation the child would be a victim as well?
Oh yeah. Well, remember in the house context, the energy that is there, the fight, the animosity ripples through. So and you know, maybe the licks aren't coming on the child yet, but that emotional turmoil is just as damaging. I don't know. It's
witnessing
just as damaging, right?
The trauma of witnessing your mother being beaten. You know, that's really traumatic for a child.
There's no escaping that reality. That healthy families will raise healthy kids, and families that are in distress, and so that ripples also as well. And we see the manifestation in the schools, in all these areas, in even our expression of violence. You know, it ripples through. You know, so it's critical. It's dire. You know, we need to really rethink. Just many things, you know, and I in working with students as a social worker, and we do some interventions in the schools, and I tell them, listen, these 2 hours that you will have with these kids could be the very best 2 hours in their day. Just nail it down, be empathic, be supportive, listen, nurture. That's it. We can't be in the homes with them, maybe we can't, but let us do what we can. And sometimes doing what we can, meaning I will report this, and you leave it there. But everybody needs to be playing a little part, and you know, it's there's a lot. But
and I also wanted to ask, or delve deeper, I guess, into something that Jenny brought up, and that was actually where can people actually get the help that they need? Whether it's for a woman or a spouse who's in a domestic violence situation, or a child who's witnessed something or has been abused, who is now in need of, let's say counseling, different, types of therapy to deal with what they've been through, whether physical or mental. What for somebody who is in that situation, what hope, what can they do?
Women's department is a great place to go. Those ladies are trained, and they will extricate. Okay, get you out of there. Particularly if there are children involved, they will do that. But let me say this. I want to just tell you a quick story. Mm-hmm. I was working at a school, and this baby used to sit in class, and she just spaced out. Teacher called and said, this baby is spacing out, and I don't know what's wrong. She's not talking to me. So she came over, and I sat with her, and we were talking. And I said, you stare off into space, and where do you go? She says, I go back home. She says, every day when I come to school, my daddy tells my mommy that he's going to kill her. So I don't know if when I get home, mommy will be alive. Yeah. And she's seeing this on a daily basis. That's so traumatic for a child.
Yeah.
All right. She's witnessing this on a daily basis, and people think just because, and he beats her too, by the way, but just because she is in the home and just witnessing that it doesn't affect her, that's trauma. And the long term damage that it does to children, it's just incredible.
You know, there was a conversation back in the 90s, and you might remember, big move, big push, empowering women, all kinds of things. And unfortunately, I think that has fallen off the radar. We're right back, to address some of the things. People will tell you, people will combat that argument by saying, we have lots of women in the university, which is true, which is great.
Yeah.
We don't need to be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, and I think you're right, and I believe this. You want to help families and children, help the women in those. I am not saying you disregard men, but we need to be very clear that when men are part of the distress that comes on women and children. Let us be very. They can't escape it because they're so linked economically. They're tied, even sexually. It's a shame that today's day and age, women might think that the only way to enjoy their sexuality is with their partner. And I'm being crude about it, but that is disempowering. I don't care who says what. Women need to be freed from some of these vestiges that keep them subordinate to their male counterparts. Do we need other interventions for men and young boys? And so yes, and I think it holds true. Sports, art, music. We need to develop better culture very early. Expose people to stuff, to nature. You know.
Actually, I'll tell you, I love what Compar is doing, because Compar goes into the homes, and they're going in Southside, they're going in different parts of the country, and they are actually teaching parenting skills.
Yeah.
But part of the teaching the parenting skills, the women, it's mostly women who come to the sessions, and they talk about domestic violence, they talk about bullying, they talk about sexual things that can happen in the home, preparing women. And that's where a lot of times we meet these women who are being abused, and they're ashamed. There's a shame element where people do not want to discuss the fact that I'm being beaten, or I'm in a home where I have no control. You know,
and it speaks to the idea of, how much more people do we need? Where do we plug that investment? Yeah. We were investing on many things, and on certain things that, it's disputable. But everybody will tell you, if the main actors are not talking about this, then that's their problem. But we need way more mental health professionals. Yes. We need way more. We're talking social workers, psychiatrists,
school counselors.
We need a counselor or a social worker in every school at every level. At least one. That's, you're talking about a human capital investment, and they'll tell you, but that's what is necessary right now, and to expose children to educational, other learning things in significant quantities. Every child, I don't want to hear no politician tell me about free education. That's pure to me. I want to hear that every child will get an opportunity to learn to play an instrument. That is what I want to listen to. Some instrument, get a chance to play. Guitar, flute, drums, whatever. Every child needs to. Every child needs.
Can I
Sure,
go ahead. Because I really want to get a point across.
Go ahead.
How can we help women? Because I'll tell you something, Marlene, and a lot of people don't know this. Men target, especially pedophiles. A pedophile is someone who likes prepubescent children, right? He'll see a woman and he sees children that are beautiful, he likes, and he wants those children. He will start courting that woman, For the children. And then get into that home and be this wonderful man to her. So she thinks that she has found Mr. Right. Right? But he is after her children. And I really need women out there to understand. Yeah. Before you take some man into your home, you absolutely need to know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. How can you meet somebody for a week and have them move into your home with you, or you move into theirs and have young children?
Expose them to your children.
Expose them to your children, because you move in and have your children with them. If you're one of these women, you really and truly need to be paying attention. You've got to ask your children. I hate to tell you another story real quick.
Well, I'm not good at hearing the stories. That was a really hard one just now.
I know, and Marlene,
and it's true.
I hear this all the time, okay?
It hurts because it's true, and because I've heard other stories similar to that. Children are really suffering. Before you go to your story, though, just because I don't want to lose the opportunity, what I wanted to bring into the discussion is looking at how violence is normalized in a society, And in a society like Belize, I don't want to mince words. We need to look in the mirror. We are a violent society.
Particularly for men.
Yeah.
You know?
And regardless of what the police or anybody wants to say, you can't tell me 5 less murders, 6 less murders. It makes no difference. We are a violent community.
Too violent.
And it is normalized in communities, and it is normalized in families. It is normalized in the way we speak to each other. And it is normalized in relationships. We are here. This is what we see. This is what we report on a daily basis. How does a society, I mean, we can't reverse. And this is a manifestation of years of things, many things, poverty and many things.
Decades.
We go back and blame. But what do we do at this point? What can we do at this point to either stop it from progressing, if at the very least that's what we can do, or start the healing, or start to make a shift? What needs to be done?
Well, I'm sure we would have different ideas. But
all right, so let's start with you, Fermin.
You say, once you learn, I mean, how do you change? And I am a stickler to, if this is what I'm exposed to, this is what I was used to me, exposure to something different is what can create that space. If I am used to living in filth and somehow I get some exposure to a clean park, to a golf course, then you have perspective. Mm-hmm. That's why I was thinking, it's hard to change older person and so on. But there are opportunities to invest early. And I think education. I am not talking about more math class. Please let us be real. Mm-hmm. I am talking about alternate learning opportunities where, like I tell you, seriously, every child in primary school needs to have an opportunity to play an instrument, to do art, to do sports.
Because recreation and play is equally as important to the development.
You see, that's how you combat the frustration in the classroom. By, back in the day, this is nothing new. There were centers, woodworking opportunities for young boys and other opportunities for young. We need more of that.
I grew up in an environment where we had so many singing groups.
That's my point.
So many people. We had bands. When you went to a dance, you had bands. You didn't have a DJ.
Yeah.
We had so many people who played different instruments. We really did.
No, listen.
Now, people are watching and saying you're talking about music and people are being abused. Like, talk to us about why. Explain the connection, right. Then we can understand the buy-in.
Right, because that affords people a psychological shift. Mm-hmm. The idea of, it gives you a space to escape that hurt and pain through some creative art. That's what I'm saying. Express yourself somehow. So that is what is necessary, along with many other things, to be honest with you, that are possible. But
so our children need outlets.
Outlets. The parents.
Positive
outlets. Listen, to be honest with you, there was a time I traveled to, say, Merida or so. And I hear the thinking, don't be out late at night. The vendors, you need to shut down at 12. We are giving into the culture of crime. It's like you're blaming people for being successful. You can't sell so late, Instead of saying, no, man, you are out there late, I will patrol late. To ensure that your livelihood is maintained. And to ensure that you're free of crime. But you're walking 7 or 8, they say, well, you shouldn't be out, you cause that in yourself. That's bogus thinking. We're falling into the grip.
Like telling girls don't get raped. Prevent rape.
You see what I'm saying? We need to rethink this. But it's, to be honest with you, the stupidity that comes over and I'm thinking, let me shut this off. Because I think we have lost our keel a long time ago. If people are in the parks, recreating. I went to schools where you can be midnight playing tennis. You put on the switch. These are regular, ordinary colleges. If you wanted to do that, you do that. You have a right to. And there's a security. They don't tell you, that maybe too late now, or you're the burn current or so. There was a time when we had lit football fields. These lights and the ground, that's gone. Yeah. We are losing our spaces to do the things that make us healthy. And then we wonder why we have an obesity problem or a health problem or all kinds of things. Well, that's probably a manifestation of unmanaged stress. We are in peril as a society. People need to be running and using just exercising and having a sense that they're safe.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the other way around. Stop doing that. You need to get your home gym and exercise our belly of fence and have 15 dogs. What is happening? We need to rethink this, and the people.
So
need
we're going defensive in our role, kind of accepting status quo.
And this defensive move is really backing up in the sense that you will lose. If our children can't go to the basketball court at 4 or 5 and 6 and play because of people are using drugs there, then we have failed. There was a time when drugs has always been around. There was a time when the drug users hid themselves under plum trees very far in the way on the outskirts. Today they want to take over the main spaces. We have allowed it. It's a collective thing that is happening, and a transformation needs to happen.
I hear from Fermin very clearly. Children need positive outlets. Music, sports, exercise, that we cannot simply be focusing on cutting back on our own space and freedom and the children's space and freedom in response to crime. Jenny, what are your thoughts in being able to mitigate the situation or the prevalence of violence that we experience?
It seems to me that right now we see the response is put more boots on the ground.
Yeah.
It didn't work in Jamaica. So why are we continuing to walk that path? We need to educate our people. We need to, somebody said it earlier, we need to provide opportunities for women to go back and learn how to read and write so they can help their children. We need to make sure that women can get jobs. Absolutely. If they have an education, they can get a job. Hopefully they can get a job or learn how to start their own little business. Absolutely. And take care of themselves. There's lots of opportunities to do small business. You don't have to depend on a man. We really have to get away from this thing where I am dependent and I have my hand out to whomever will give me something. That's what's killing us, I believe, right? And so if I become dependent on somebody else, then they can shame me, they can do all kinds of, I'm dependent, you control me, you have power and control over me. And I really believe this is what we have to do. We have got to liberate women and empower them so that we can get out there and take care of our own. That's how I feel. I love Fermin's thing that we need to do all these things. That's important.
I think both need to be done. Yes. Yeah.
But I really think we have to empower
because even
women.
in the schools, with all the talk of focusing on standardized exams, that the first thing to get cut is your music or art or even PE.
Yeah. There's something to be said about left brain, right brain. You know, you have to have balance. You have to have balance.
So, and speaking of, I think it goes deeper. It goes to having women understand from a very young age value. That I'm more than a procreator or that I am more than a dependent. And that's, how do we undo that? You know, I think
I get stressed out when I think about it because, you know, we do a lot of stuff where we are talking to women. Marlene, I listened to that thing last night and people are talking about domestic violence so loosely, you know.
Yeah. That was difficult to hear.
Yes, and it's so normalized. We have normalized violence. Normalized it, not just accept it. It's normal. This is what you do first. You respond with violence first.
Does this start from more corporal punishment practices? Does it go beyond that?
Hurt people. It's a cycle. If I grew up when I was getting beaten, people don't say, okay, when I grow up, I'm gonna make sure I don't beat somebody else. It's almost as if you fall into it because it's what you know. Okay, it's what you know. Unfortunately, we have, the battering is on both sides sometimes, but mainly we have women who have accepted that they cannot help themselves and so depend on people who beat them or who put them in vulnerable positions and they bring their children along with them. That has to change. I'm not saying that just putting money into a department is going to do it. Right. You really have to get out there and start. Instead of doing this thing like Fermin said, you know, spending more money buying giving more scholarships or whatever. Teach these women how to read. Teach them how to be able to take care of themselves. Beltrade is doing a really good thing where they help women with small businesses, right? Yeah. We need to let people know that there's some of these opportunities out there so that they do not have to depend on these men. And earlier we were talking in here as a group about just the whole culture of hurting children to get at somebody else. I think a lot of this is in this situation right here. I know you don't want to talk about just this particular situation, but there is something to be said about hurting a child so badly to get back at somebody else. That's crazy, particularly when you are using your sexual organs to subjugate and beat down and just in a rage. Hurt somebody this badly.
I think that also touches on something which we sort of touched on a little bit earlier, but talking about, normalizing violence and let's say dominant behavior and something in men. And that's definitely something that I think we talk about all the time, that we need to address at a societal level, how we raise our male children, how do we socialize them so that they can, deal with emotions rather than being violent. So that they don't have to project this dominant personality, so that they feel that if they're in a situation, that they feel that it's their right to abuse somebody, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, how do we, that's an issue that also, needs serious addressing. And I'm wondering if in your work, from both of your perspectives, whether you see that changing positively, let's say, anytime sooner, based on what you're looking at, how are we doing where that is concerned?
I unfortunately, I don't think that we're doing very, very well. Let me say this. I think there is a rethink. I like to think about this. If you're hollow, when I say hollow, you're empty. If I'm not grounded on my culture, my mestizo-ness, and some of the lessons that I got that I could process. Of course, I have some education, I have some school, I had some good opportunities. It offered perspective. I learned a little bit about the world. But if your world is in a nutshell, and this is all you have, then that's your reality. But I think there are opportunities in our little circles, and I think we need more. We need more men. We need to be grounded on who we are, on what is it to be a man or what is it to be a woman, and to critically look at those things. And I like how Jenny put it. Hurt brings hurt. Can we, instead of hurting, be supportive and grow together? What does it mean to be successful?
We could start right with the mothers.
You see what I'm saying?
I have been saying too that there needs to be there needs to be a men's empowerment group as well. Mm-hmm. And the women don't have to do it. The men can start it on their own.
Yes.
They're fully capable as well. It is critical that we show that men do positive things in our society, and some do choose a path different from domestic violence and womanizing and alcoholism, which is kind of just the standard of what we put on men.
People could go online and look at quickly Mahatma Gandhi as a formidable man at a world stage level. He did not depict any of the qualities that this is a macho, masculine, but this is an exemplary, outstanding example of what a man is or what he can be. Yeah. You see, so we need to look at those other aspects, and I think, for example, if you're playing a little competitive game and you lose, you learn something from that. It's a part of your development. I don't need to get a gun now and shoot you. But when you're so hollow, when you're so shallow, that's the first thing that comes. You're primal, meaning you're way to the very essence of, and in this case, a very raw essence of just hurting or killing. Yeah. How lower can we be? Where babies, I don't know. But I don't know. It's a baffling one.
It is.
We have to start with the parents. We have to start right way down there, I believe. Where if a baby boy goes and plays with a doll, everybody screams, ah! you put the dolly down, you turn into a Sissy or whatever. But that's when boys learn how to be tender.
Nurture.
By nurturing, right? We have to stop this nonsense about these are the roles for boys and these are the roles for girls. And really and truly start teaching children to be loving and kind, all children. And
not just girls.
Not just
girls,
boys. And boys. We need to start down there. I'm noticing now, I'm seeing some men, I hadn't seen this for a while, but I'm seeing men now with their babies, being really loving and nurturing with babies. I'm loving that. That's great.
I wanted to jump in there because this is one of the things, we talked about it a lot, about teaching boys how to be more nurturing and kind of removing the gender stereotypes that we've placed on them for such a long time. And what I hear sometimes are stories of parents who are trying at home, but then they have to go into the school environment with other children who have not had that exposure, with teachers who haven't bought into that exposure. So try as you may as a parent, you'll still have girls coming home, shifting to the gender stereotypes, or little boys coming home, shifting to that gender stereotype, despite what mommy and daddy are trying to do at home. So it has to be a collective approach. Or you'll be constantly fighting the system.
But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I look at what Compar is doing. It's
wonderful work.
One person at a time, one family at a time, one mother at a time, one father at a time. You know, they say one wedding fill basket. That's where we have to start. That's where we are starting. We see the changes a little bit at a time, but hopefully over time it will make an impact, you know? Again, I just need to say this as my final thought because I see Stephanie.
Yeah, I know. The producer's here.
It is so important, ladies. Please be careful when you have little ones about bringing men into your family or you moving your children into that situation. And if you are in a domestic violence situation and you have children, you need to get up for yourself, but more so for your children. More so for your children.
All right, before we close though, I do want to get in the mandatory reporting law because that's one of the things that I think we started off in terms of talking about how and why, but people are also legally mandated to report child abuse, physical and sexual.
Right, so essentially there are two groups. Those that are mandated or those that must and should. And if they don't, there can be consequences to them. And these are people that generally exercise some kind of a power and control over those children. And you talk about hospital personnel, doctors, teachers, counselors, police, people that can exercise and do exercise power and control over kids. This includes family members as well. So you have a duty to report. You should report it. And then you have the rest of society that they could say, you know what, they have a moral obligation. They should do it because just it's the right thing. That's the neighbor, that's the, maybe the casual passerby, that's what it is. But the provisions afford some protections as well. People that have a duty to report, it's many times as a result of their job, that their professional stuff, you should do it. And I started saying that even among social workers, the literature, the research that has been done, even they hesitate sometimes to report certain, sometimes. And we talked about that very briefly. But let me summarize this by saying we all have a role and we can play a role to protect children. We just need to take that action. There are some protections. And of course, it's great if we look beyond that moral. Moral kind of puts you off the hook. Well, you should. But if we think that protecting children is their right and my obligation, then we have a good mix. Children need to protect it, and it's our right to help them, obligation to uphold that right for them.
All right. Thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. As we said, it is one of the things that pretty much everyone is talking about, with disgust, with rage, with frustration.
We're going through the grieving process, and we need to understand that.
Yeah. And we hope that the conversation triggers or inspires thoughts and actions that we need to adapt from this point forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're still talking about life-saving tips, but this time it's going to be CPR. So please stay tuned.